Hi Tim, welcome to Linaro Connect. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
So we go back a long way, right? We're old men in this game.
We are. I don't have a beard, but I feel like a gray beard in
Well,
the
I've
end.
only got it to stroke, so makes me look vaguely intelligent. Back in the day, in the ARM9 and embedded Linux, we were involved quite a lot then in setting up Self.
Yeah.
That seemed ancient history. It is. It was back in the day when Linux was primitive and ARM was unknown. So where have we come to since then?
Well, wow. It's been a really interesting ride. ARM is the dominant processor in embedded. Really no other way to put it. And the community has matured, the open source community, and Linux has really grown up and has taken a dominant role also in the embedded field. So.
No, that's true. Embedded Linux has gone from being a toy that you hack and throw the product to mainstream.
I can remember the very first project that I worked on was like a little router project, and people wondered if Linux could actually be an operating system that worked in a router.
And guess what? It's everywhere.
Today that's unthinkable.
In my house.
It's like, could something besides Linux be used as a router? Is a question these days.
So the problem we saw back in that day was just trying to get different companies, different ARM companies, different consumer companies to talk together. Do you think they've learned that trick?
Yeah, I think they're doing a lot better. I was really happy to see Linaro, the work that they've done to get semiconductor vendors together. I think is really impressive. I'm not just saying that as part of an interview.
But, no, I know what you mean.
There's a lot of anytime you get competitors in the same room, there's a lot of challenges involved. And I've worked with standards for a long time, and you have to get over the mentality that we're competing with these guys. There are ways that we can cooperate that can benefit us both.
Right, and by competing guys coming together, you can work on the common problems.
Right.
And, that was always our dream.
Yeah.
And I remember some of the early meetings where it was kind of frustrating to get that over because people couldn't see the value of that cooperation. Yeah. They could see the value of seeing what the other guy, but they couldn't see the value of the.
Yeah, I can remember one of the very early days I was working with. We had over in Japan, Sony and Panasonic are arch rivals. And I just remember one meeting we had with a bunch of Sony guys and a bunch of Panasonic guys, and it was like, I don't know, the metaphor I came up with is, there's a big battle going on, a big war, and over on the side of the battlefield, there's this little tent where, the two sides are getting together and working out new design for the next generation of swords. Yeah. And they're collaborating.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm really proud of for Linaro, the fact you've got all these really fierce competitors in a room all discussing. I mean, we're sat in this room and they're all next door discussing the scheduler and power management and graphics. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
So you were saying this morning in your talk that there isn't one community, there are many sub-communities, and you were talking a little bit about Android and forking. Where do you think Android are in terms of being their own sub-community versus the rest of the kernel these days?
I think they're improving. I think they still have a ways to go in terms of integrating with kind of the broader Linux community. Android is interesting. Linux is not Android is not really about Linux per se. Android has its own kind of play that they're doing. They have their own developer community, and so it's kind of along the same lines. There's parts of their organization and parts of their development that benefit from being involved in the Linux community, and then there's parts of Android that are kind of unrelated to historical embedded Linux, and that's fine. But I think things are going actually pretty well. I'm pretty happy with where things are right now.
I thought the recent changes from Linus, from Alan Cox, from those guys saying actually this Android code that we've been a bit sniffy about, we're kind of going actually that's okay, and it's not like the floodgates are opening, but you can actually see a way that the community's turning around and saying actually this Android and actually it's embedded as well as Android is stuff that we want.
Yeah, no, and I was really surprised. I went to there was a kernel summit in October, and Android was not even on the agenda, but it came up, and I was pleasantly surprised with the way the discussion turned. A lot of developers, not just Linus, but others, have said, look, it's shipping on a lot of devices. There's good reasons to put it in, and so that I think like you said, it's not floodgates, but
no, it's kind of a mutual respect thing, I think, and an understanding that these embedded guys, these Android guys, know stuff about getting the most out of battery life and the kernel.
Yeah.
The kernel itself is, it's great at server, it's great at desktop.
Right.
But I believe for ARM, for the diverse systems that ARM has got, is not so well tuned for things like IMM views and the whole graphic stuff we've been working on. There's bits of the kernel need extra work to be more subtle to support this sort of system. So I think Android brings a lot of that power management thinking to it.
So, their application model is very different, and you can tell that the Android developers are very experienced. In the mobile space, a lot of the issues that they tackled. As a general embedded Linux developer, it was like, oh, wow, it's nice to see someone who really took on that particular issue and did a good job of it. And actually, one of the challenges I have is I am looking for ways to extract some of the technologies out of Android and pull them back into kind of what non-Android embedded Linux.
Classic embedded.
Classic legacy embedded. I don't know if that's the.
I think anything that's connected to the internet and everything will be isn't embedded anymore. So I stopped using the word embedded because it's kind of it kind of has some wrong connotations. It means small, lightweight, power efficient.
Right.
It doesn't mean nasty and small and.
Well, the telephone carriers consider their big iron switches embedded. What is embedded?
I mean, the whole thing's blurring. So looking forward slightly, what do you think? Where do you think the ARM community and the ARM Linux community and Linaro need to go next? Have you got any views on that?
I think
just keep shoveling.
I think keep shoveling.
There's
There's specific problem areas. We're still working on undiverging. I don't want to use the word fork. I just did though. See, there you go. Darn. But undiverging the Android code base and so there's groups in
consolidation is still a big part of this. There's still a ways to go. There's lots happened, but keep shoveling.
There's more stuff to do there. There's an awful lot of stuff I think that the ARM SoC vendors bring to the table in terms of power management. The chip designs are quite different than some of the other things that are out there that Linux is used to dealing with, and so just need to keep pushing the envelope on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean the other thing I see is we're moving out of just the ARM envelope. So we're now, especially with things like Big Little, we're up playing with the scheduler, or we want to go play with the scheduler. Now, that affects everyone. Yeah. And so, the PowerPC guys, the MIPS guys, the x86 guys, they're all going to go, hey, what are these upstart ARM guys doing now? They're in there. And
at Sony, we've been doing real time with ARM, RT preempt, and it's been kind of lonely, I have to tell you. So, the RT preempt patch set is one of the real-time features that's out of tree still for the Linux kernel. And it's kind of well established and functioning okay on other platforms, but on ARM, it'd be good to kind of build up that community. So as ARM gets into other product categories,
the Internet of Things,
all that
which
stuff
will come,
Yeah, and that's good for us.
I'm kind of going in a slightly different direction. You're more of an embedded guy, and I'm moving towards server and 64-bit. So what I'm really excited about is this whole new server space, and with lots of exciting stuff happened, and then obviously the big challenge of 64-bit. As if it wasn't enough having
Speak with my Sony hat on. Sony has products going both directions, right? We have at the same time we're looking at Android and kind of higher end systems. I call Android a higher end system. It's an open platform for application development, and you need a lot more horsepower for that type of thing. Same time we're doing that, we're also looking at deep embedded, and so one of the recent things I did was try to get 4K stacks back into the kernel on ARM for a machine that I want to run with only 4 meg of RAM.
Wow.
And
wow.
so that's the great thing about Linux, though. It scales.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's really the only operating
Linus
system.
used to say he didn't think that the kernel scheduler would scale from embedded to server, and guess what it's doing? It's scaling from embedded to server. Although Big Little might introduce some interesting challenges along the way, but that's the future. Anyway, meanwhile, thank you very much for chatting, and enjoy Linaro, Andy. I'll see you next week.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks
Cheers.
a lot.
Cheers.